It was a bright, sweltering afternoon in Miami, May 2025. The convention center pulsed with anticipation as President Donald Trump strode onto the stage, greeted by thunderous applause and a sea of red caps and fluttering American flags. Another rally, another show of political bravado. The crowd was electric with the fervor typical of his gatherings. Sitting quietly in the fifth row was Marcus Washington, a 28-year-old African-American Harvard student, his navy blue blazer crisp and his posture composed. A small Burkina Faso flag pin on his lapel hinted at a deeper purpose for his presence. Unlike the cheering masses around him, Marcus hadn't come to celebrate Trump. He was there for something else entirely. An international relations graduate now pursuing a master's in African politics, Marcus had been deeply inspired by Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré, especially after the young leader's bold and unapologetic exchange with Kamala Harris that had gone viral months earlier. He admired Traoré's courage, clarity, and commitment to his people and to truth. Trump's voice boomed through the center, pulling Marcus back to the moment. "My fellow Americans," Trump declared in his signature bombastic style, "we are living in times of great challenges, but also of great opportunity." Applause roared again. Marcus remained still, watching, waiting. He knew what was coming. Trump often pivoted to foreign policy during his rallies, and Africa was usually in his crosshairs. "You know," Trump said, arms flailing for emphasis, "we've got some world leaders, young guys, totally inexperienced, thinking they can challenge America." Marcus's jaw tightened. He knew exactly who Trump meant. The crowd laughed, some jeered. Trump kept going. "We're seeing these so-called leaders from Africa, barely out of military school, acting like they've got lessons to teach the United States of America." Boos erupted. Trump smirked and added, "Let me be clear. Nobody teaches America about democracy." Marcus's fists clenched. The message couldn't be more pointed. Traoré's defiance on the global stage had made him a symbol of a new Africa, proud, unapologetic, and unwilling to be lectured. To reduce him to a little dictator was more than political posturing. It was an insult to Burkina Faso and to the continent as a whole. "These little dictators," Trump sneered. "Think a few slick sound bites on TV make them some kind of genius." The phrase hit the room like a punch. Marcus had heard enough. He rose from his seat. At 6-1, his sudden movement and towering presence caught attention. Whispers spread. Some turned to stare. He adjusted his blazer, took a deep breath, and steadied. Himself, he hadn't come here to cause a scene, but now he had no choice. "Mr. President," Marcus's voice rang out, slicing through the noise. Trump halted mid-sentence, squinting toward the source of the interruption. A hush spread like a ripple across the sea of supporters. "Who said that?" Trump barked into the mic, irritated. "It was me, sir," Marcus called out clearly, standing tall. "Marcus Washington, Harvard student." The crowd murmured. Some scoffed, some booed, others turned with curiosity. Trump raised an eyebrow and smirked. "Ah, a Harvard student. What a surprise," he said with theatrical sarcasm. Laughter erupted. "Again, let me guess, here to teach me about politics." Marcus drew another breath. This was it, his moment. "No, Mr. President," he said, voice steady and bold. "I'm here to speak about truth and justice." The word justice echoed through the convention center and was instantly drowned by a fresh wave of boos. Trump smirked and pointed toward the commotion. "Security, please escort this young man out," he said into the microphone. Apparently, Harvard doesn't teach manners anymore. Laughter rippled through the crowd. But Marcus wasn't done. He saw the guards pushing their way through the rows. Fast, but not fast enough. He had seconds, maybe less. "Mr. President," he shouted, raising his voice above the chaos. "You just insulted one of the most respected leaders in Africa today." That stopped Trump in his tracks. The audience stirred, some still booing, others quieting, curiosity slowly replacing contempt. "Ibrahim Traoré is not a dictator," Marcus continued, his voice steady and strong. "He's a Democrat who reduced poverty in Burkina Faso by 23% in just 3 years." A murmur swept through the room. "He built 847 new schools. Infant mortality is down 31%. He made Burkina Faso the safest country in the entire Sahel." Numbers cut through the noise. Even Trump, who rarely encountered hard facts at his rallies, looked momentarily thrown off balance. "Boy," Trump said into the mic, irritation giving way to disbelief. "You're defending a military coup plotter." "No, sir," Marcus responded instantly. "I'm defending a man who came to power under crisis, but who governs with democratic values. 3 free elections, 89% voter turnout." More murmurs, this time deeper, not boos, questions, doubts. Marcus pressed on, his voice rising, and most importantly, he has never insulted the American people. Not once, even when personally attacked. He only defended the dignity of his country. The security guards finally reached Marcus, but Trump raised his hand, halting them. "Hold on," he said, eyeing the young man with a hint of intrigue. "Do you actually believe all this?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Yes, Mr. President," he said. "I believe it because I've studied the facts." He let the moment land. Ibrahim Traoré holds a master's in public administration. He's currently working on an MBA in economic development, studying in the early hours before leading his nation. The audience shifted again. Trump, who was known to admire academic credentials when it suited him, looked genuinely surprised. "At Harvard," Marcus said, pausing for emphasis, "they taught me to research before I judge, and the numbers speak for themselves." He took one final breath, projecting his voice with clarity. "Burkina Faso's GDP has grown by 7% under Traoré's leadership." Now the room was quiet, not because they agreed, but because someone had dared to challenge a president with data, poise, and conviction. And for a moment, even Trump had no comeback. "Here is a polished, cinematic, and emotionally rich rewrite of your entire narrative. This version enhances the dialogue, strengthens the pacing, and elevates the emotional and political stakes, while keeping the original spirit fully intact. 2% last year, foreign investment up 400%. Before Marcus could continue, a voice rang out from the crowd. "This kid is lying." Marcus didn't flinch. "I'm not lying," he said, loud and clear. "These numbers are publicly available from the World Bank, the IMF, even the CIA." The mention of the CIA made Trump pause, raising a curious eyebrow. "Yes," Marcus went on. "According to American intelligence reports, Burkina Faso is now more stable than many of our so-called allies." Trump slowly walked to the edge of the stage, narrowing his eyes at Marcus. "So you're telling me this young African leader is better than our traditional allies?" "I'm telling you," Marcus said firmly. "He governs based on results, not rhetoric. He's turned one of the world's poorest nations into a regional success story." The room shifted. Boos still rumbled, but now they mixed with murmurs and listening. Marcus looked directly at the president. "And you, Mr. President, leader of the world's greatest democracy, should be the first to recognize real leadership, no matter the age or nationality." A heavy silence fell over the room. Trump studied the young man. His face was hard to read, somewhere between annoyance, curiosity, and reluctant respect. He didn't speak for nearly 10 seconds. In rally time, that was forever. Then finally, in a quieter, more contemplative tone, Trump said, "You know, kid, I like people who stand up for what they believe in." The audience stirred, surprised by the shift in tone. "But tell me something," Trump continued. "If this Ibrahim Traoré is so good, why did Kamala Harris go after him?" Marcus cracked a small, confident smile. "Because she underestimated him, sir. And she paid the price publicly. You even criticized her handling of the situation." Trump nodded. That much was true. He had called her comments clumsy after the Traoré exchange went viral. "So, what do you think I should do?" Trump asked, now openly testing Marcus. "Invite him," Marcus said instantly. "Make it official. Show the world that America recognizes excellence, even when it comes from a young African leader." It would be a brilliant diplomatic move. It was a bold suggestion, and some in the crowd began clapping, softly at first, then louder. "You studied diplomacy at Harvard?" Trump asked, raising an eyebrow again. "International relations, sir, specializing in contemporary Africa. And what else do you know about this Traoré?" Trump asked. Marcus took a breath. "He's done more to fight terrorism than any foreign intervention. Terrorist attacks are down 65%, and he did it without major outside help. The Pentagon could study his strategy." That got the room's attention. Even Trump leaned in. "Keep going, Harvard boy." Marcus didn't hesitate. Ibrahim Traoré is everything America claims to support. Young, educated, reform-minded, his wife's a teacher. They live modestly, and he's already set a date for presidential elections. Trump stopped pacing. When 22, he's promised to serve only one term, just enough to stabilize the country, then step down. The room was hanging on every word now. Even die-hard Trump supporters were unsure how to react to this unexpected turn. You really believe he'll keep that promise? Trump asked. Marcus nodded. Based on his track record, yes. Every promise he's made so far, he's delivered. Schools, hospitals, security. He's not clinging to power, he's building a legacy. Trump looked at him for a long moment. Why do you care so much about an African president, young man? Marcus's voice dropped, soft, but powerful. Because he represents hope. Mr. President, hope that young leaders can make a difference, that Africa can succeed without Western paternalism, that dignity and competence matter more than age or origin. The entire convention center fell silent. Trump glanced at the crowd, then back at Marcus. You got me thinking. Harvard boy, he said finally. Maybe I judged this Trory guy too quickly. The admission shocked the audience. Trump almost never walked back a stance, and never in public. If I invited him to Washington, Trump continued, you'd think he'd come. Marcus smiled. I'm sure he would, sir. He's said many times he wants respectful partnerships, including with the United States. Trump raised an eyebrow. And would you help organize it? It would be the honor of my life, Marcus replied without a second's pause. The audience broke into full applause. What should have been an expulsion was becoming a moment of history. You know, Trump said, turning to the crowd. I've always said America should work with strong leaders, no matter where they come from. Applause grew louder. And maybe, he added, it's time we show the world we recognize talent, wherever it's found. Trump turned to the security detail. Instead of escorting this young man out, escort him to my box. I want to continue this conversation. Marcus, still buzzing with adrenaline, was guided toward the VIP section, no longer a protester, but now a guest of honor. Inside the VIP suite, he found himself surrounded by Trump's senior advisors. The president poured himself a Coke and leaned back. So, Harvard boy, he said, convince me, once and for all. Why should I make Trory a partner of the United States? Marcus took a breath. Mr. President, Burkina Faso has the largest gold reserves in West Africa. It also has untapped manganese, zinc, and rich agricultural potential. But Trory doesn't just want to export raw materials. He wants to industrialize. Trump leaned forward, interested. Go on. He's building special economic zones, giving tax incentives to companies that process materials in country. That creates jobs there and here. American companies have a natural advantage in that system. The Commerce Secretary scribbled notes. And what about China? France? Trump asked. Marcus was ready. Trory values transparency, ethical practices. He prefers working with countries that respect sovereignty. Plus, he speaks fluent English and admires the American education system. Trump smiled. Interesting. What about security? The Sahel's a mess. That's why we need effective partners, Marcus replied. Trory's already reduced terrorism without us troops. But training, intelligence sharing, that's where we could cooperate. The defense secretary nodded thoughtfully. And politically? Trump asked. How does it help me? Marcus locked eyes with the president. You'd be remembered as the man who discovered one of Africa's most promising leaders, a president with a vision to see what others missed. It would be a historic legacy. 3 months later, cameras flashed at Andrews Air Force Base as Ibrahim Traoré descended from the presidential jet for his first official visit to the United States. At his side, welcoming him on the tarmac, was Marcus Washington, now appointed special advisor to the White House on African affairs. I never imagined that day in Miami would lead to this, Marcus whispered to his old Harvard professor, who stood nearby. Sometimes the professor smiled. Speaking the truth, at the right moment, changes everything. Inside the Oval Office, President Trump and President Traoré sat side by side, relaxed, like old friends. You know, Ibrahim, Trump said, that Harvard kid made me rethink everything I thought I knew about you. Traoré smiled. Marcus, Washington is an exceptional young man. America should be proud. We are, Trump replied. In fact, he'll be your next U.S. ambassador to Burkina Faso. The partnership. What followed was historic. U.S. companies invested $8 billion. In Burkina Faso, over 200,000 jobs were created. In return, the U.S. gained access to strategic resources and a rare, trusted ally in West Africa. Marcus, now 29, had become a symbol, a bridge between two nations. In interviews, he credited that moment in Miami. Harvard taught me that truth, when spoken with respect and courage, can move mountains, he said. At Trump rallies, the president often referenced the moment. I listened to smart people, no matter their age, he'd say. That kid changed the way I saw a continent. And in Burkina Faso, murals of Marcus standing up in that convention center were painted across Ouagadougou, a tribute to the young American who reminded the world that justice and truth know no borders.